want to call your attention to it. I do know. You don't have to tell me. He does. Then the angel showed me the river of the water of life, as clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb down the middle of the great street of the city. On each side of the river stood a tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit, yielding its fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations. This is like a really good passage. No longer will there be any curse. The throne of God and of the Lamb will be in the city, and his servants will serve him. The Bible explains that we, for whatever reason, we are going to be rulers with God. We're going to reign with God as his servants. Now, when I hear that, I think, well, that's sort of what it's like to be. It's supposed to be like that here on earth. We're his servants, and we're supposed to bring his reign, his kingdom, to the earth by reaching out to those who are experiencing chaos in their life and setting it in order. The order that God has called, aligning it with God's word, God's desire for people, God's love, his grace, his renewing strength, his renewing power. I don't know if you've ever seen in the book of Romans, it talks about that the whole earth is crying out, waiting for God to renew it again, to make it right. The more I see people struggle through this life, I think, oh, I just want that to be here. And so really that's been the plan of God throughout, is to bring everything back into this order, and we will be his servants as we do it. And this is maybe the best thing about what heaven will be like. They will see his face, and his name will be on their foreheads. There will be no more night. I don't know if you know the blessing that Aaron gives. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you. You've heard this, right? It says at the end that that's how, when the priest would bless the people, that's how he would put God's name on their foreheads. Basically, like, I am God's. If you see a little doll with, made in China or something, that's us. We are made by God and we're his. And then stamped on our foreheads. And it says, they will not need the light of a lamp or the light of the sun, for the Lord God will give them light, and they will reign forever and ever. See, the beginning of the Bible speaks of our dominion. The end of the Bible speaks of us reigning over heaven as his servants. We were created to reign as God's servants. Now, I know you probably don't think much of your life, but God really does think a lot about you and what you've been called to do. We're called to reign. But here's the thing. We're not really called to reign alone. The Lord God said when he created us, it's not good for the man to be alone. I'm going to make a helper suitable for him. Now, we know that as a wife, right? You had Adam and then you had Eve, and they were put together. But the whole purpose was so that they could reign together. It wasn't enough that Adam was there. He couldn't do it alone. He needed a helper. And so God created the first family. And family is the first place where we can begin to, as a family, learn to reign, to bring in God's reign on the earth. We are not created to reign alone. Now, that's the beginning, that's the end. What happens through the middle of the Bible? Well, it's interesting because God just picks a person. He says to that person, I want you to gather together a community of friends, and then I want you to take my love, my message, out to the rest of the world, to those who are lost. And it happens over and over and over in the Scriptures. You guys remember Abraham? If you know anything about God's people, you know that oftentimes they failed. You guys heard that kind of story? Failed a number of times, but this is the beginning of the plan of God to create a community of people that would love him and reach out and reign on this earth. And Abraham was the first guy. God said, hey, I want you to go. I want you to take your family. I'm going to send you to a place where you're not sure where we're going yet, but I'm going to send you there, and you'll find it. You'll know when you see it. And I want to bless you. And anybody who blesses you, I'll bless. And anybody who kind of messes with you, I will mess with them. But eventually the whole earth is going to be blessed through you. So somehow Abraham was supposed to take his family, and his family was supposed to go to a nation, and the nation was supposed to bless the entire world. Bring God's reign on the earth. Started to work. You had Isaac, you had Jacob, You had Joseph, but then all of a sudden, Joseph got taken down into Egypt. I don't know if you remember that. And so God said, oh shoot, my people are in slavery. I need to reach out. I need to get somebody to help them. And so we got Moses, right? Big guy, Moses. God called Abraham in the beginning, then God calls Moses. And he wants Moses to do something. He's longing for him to reach out to a group of people, bring them out, and then help them bring the reign of God onto the earth. Now the problem is, it wasn't like Abraham who had this small family. Moses had this enormous group of people. And so God looked at that and said, whoo, I need some helpers for this guy, because it's a big group of people and he's not going to be able to do this on his own. So the Lord said to Moses, bring me 70 of Israel's elders who are known to you as leaders and officials among the people. I want you to have them come to the tent of meeting that they may stand there with you. And the tent of meeting is where God went to, or where Moses went to meet with God, like face to face, personally. I will come down and speak with you there, and I will take some of the power of the Spirit that is on you and put it on them. They will share the burden of the people with you, so that you will not have to carry it alone. And so God says, I realize that I called you to lead this group of people to bring my reign upon the earth, but I realize also that it's too much for you. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you helpers, and those people are going to call as well, and they're going to go out and lead with you. They're going to be helpers for you. Helper suitable for you. I've heard that before. Oh yeah, that's how he did in the beginning. God made someone that was a helper suitable for him so he could actually do this task. Now, it's not just that God was going to take the spirit that was on Moses and put it on these people. He also said, I want to break it down. Now, this isn't working so well. And so, believe it or not, there was a guy, his father-in-law. How many of you have father-in-laws? Yeah, you're right. And you love them, don't you? I mean, they're wonderful people. I mean, they are. It's the mother-in-laws that are. I'm kidding. That is, squeeze.
Yeah.
That was a joke. Often my mother-in-law sits up here. But, no. His father-in-law came to see him. Moses had done this amazing thing, leading the people out of Egypt, and they were kind of wandering around, waiting to go into the promised land. And Moses was trying to take care of absolutely everyone. So the next day, Moses took his seat to serve as judge for the people. You can relate to this, yes? He's going to judge the people. And they stood around him from morning till evening. When his father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he said, what is this you are doing for the people? Why do you alone sit as judge while all these people stand around you from morning till evening? You see, this huge nation, probably a couple of million people, whenever they had a problem and they needed some guidance, they would come to Moses alone, and Moses had to take care of everyone. Now, the beauty of it, when Moses took care of it, it was done. But there were so many people that they would stand around waiting patiently and probably impatiently for Moses to rule. And Jethro, his father-in-law, said, that's stupid. Moses answered his father-in-law, well, because the people come to me to see God's will. Whenever they have a dispute, it's brought to me, and I decide between the parties and inform them of God's decrees and instructions. Moses' father-in-law replied, what you are doing is stupid. It's not good. Even these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone. So he gives them this advice. Listen now to me, and I will give you some advice, and may God be with you. You must be the people's representative before God and bring their disputes to him. Teach them his decrees and instructions. But there's something else. Show them the way they are to live and how they are to behave. But select capable men from all the people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, and appoint them as officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. He says, what I want you to do, as you try to take this reign of God to the world, don't try to do this all yourself. You will not be able to do it. What you need to do is break it down into groups, into smaller groups, so that you together can do this, and it's not just landed on one person's shoulders. Have them serve as judges for the people at all times, and have them bring every difficult case to you. The simple cases they can decide themselves. That will make your load lighter because they will share it with you. And if you do this, and God so commands, you'll be able to stand the strain, and all these people will go home satisfied. You see, they weren't satisfied when they were all standing around Moses and he had to take care of everybody's dispute. Nobody was satisfied. He was wiped out, and they all went home, and I can't believe you didn't see me today. And so Joshua said, you know what I need you to do is just split this up so that everybody is taken care of, and they all get their matters dealt with. And then you take care of the really difficult cases. Now, I think on your outline there is sort of a pattern that we begin to see. And I want you to kind of write down these answers so that you realize it's not just a pattern that you see one place, it's a pattern that you see throughout the Scriptures. And maybe it's just God's way of doing things. We saw it in Abraham, we saw it in Moses, we see it in other people like Nehemiah, Paul in the New Testament. God calls a leader. He says, okay, I have a mission for you. You need to go and do this. Whether it's taking his people and forming a nation, maybe it's taking the nation out of captivity and bringing them into the promised land. For Paul, I need to take this gospel around the world, bring my reign to people around the world. God calls a leader. Secondly, the leader gathers, and I'm going to say friends, because now I want to move into the life of Jesus. Because when we see the life of Jesus, this is like the way that he does things. Obviously, he would have been the leader, and you know that he gathered friends around him. And what were they called? I know, I knew that you were falling asleep, so I thought I'd get you. Okay, I'll ask the question again. Who are these people called that Jesus called to himself? Yeah, okay. What? I just keep on going. Somebody will say it eventually, right? So, yeah, good. Is everybody awake now? Okay, good. Sure enough, yeah, one of the days, Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray and spent the night praying to God. When morning came, he called his disciples to him and chose 12 of them, whom he also designated apostles. So he goes out and he says, okay. Now, he had more followers at the time. And somebody asked me that question. There were more followers than just his 12. While he was, kind of debating on, well, who am I going to actually bring to myself? Because when God calls a leader, the leader is called then, or told to gather some friends together. And sure enough, he decides, okay, the disciples are going to be a great group, but I need to even net them out a little bit and find some apostles who I can build into. I want to spend most of my time with them. Now, if you know anything about the New Testament, there's actually a smaller group of people that Jesus really hangs out with. You know who those people are? They're like names. Peter, yeah. James, and John. Peter, James, and John. What do we know about those guys? James and John, sons of thunder, passionate dudes. And they see something going wrong, they want to call down fire from heaven and wipe people out. And they got some fire in their belly. And Peter, he's always out there leading in front of people. Right? So Jesus calls those people who are like fiery disciples, and he really wants to hang out with them. The other 12, sure, or the other 9 he's going to hang out with, but he really wants somebody with some fire in their belly. How many of you are there? Huh? Come on. You know what we did? One of the trustees and I, we were talking about this, Jesus wanting people who had some fire in their bellies. And so we this past 2 weeks, it took us a while, we ran copper pipe underneath the seats. And we drilled just a little hole. And we put some natural gas in there. And so there'll be a moment where, maybe in a few moments, that there's a little clicker that I have on my phone, and it puts a little fire underneath you. Wouldn't it be awesome? It'd probably be nice in January. And for whatever reason, Jesus picked some fiery guys to follow him. And then he says to his apostles, his disciples, those who he's been hanging out with, at the end of his life, hey, you know what? I want you to do something. See, the thing is, Jesus doesn't call us to just be friends. there's a mission involved in us being together, and I think that's crucial. He does call a leader. God calls a leader. Jesus calls leaders to lead a gathering of friends. But it's not just about being friends. Just like in the Old Testament and really the history of the Scriptures, God calls us to gather a group of friends and take the reign of God, His dominion, to the world. We are going to reign with Him. In the beginning we did, and we will do it for all of eternity. But He wants us to do that here while we're on earth. It's not that we come together and be friends as the end journey. It's a means to an end. In fact, it is the means to an end. He wants us to come together so that we can bring the reign of God to this earth, because we cannot do it alone. This is what He says at the end of His life. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love is no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. Now He says we're friends. The Hebrew word, you always want to know the Hebrew word, right? Yeah. Okay. Haver. And you have to make the H hard, like you're coughing. Like this is the beginning of a cough. Haver. Try it. Haver. Now, that's a friend, singular. This is even better. If there's two of them, it has an eem on the end. This sounds good. Haverim. Say that. Haverim. That is what Jesus is talking about. This group of friends. And in the Jewish tradition, a haverim is not just about friendship. It's about doing the mission of God together. And so we are called into haverims so that we can do the mission of God together. And this is what He says. I no longer call you servants, because the servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I call you friends. For everything that I learned from my Father, I have made known to you. The idea that we are called into this mission, see, God has revealed that mission to us. And we're not just His servants now. We are His friends, His co-laborers, those who will reign with Him. We are haverim. Yes! So that's important. You're not just a person out there alone trying to make your ends meet, trying to, get the bills paid, trying to raise some kids. No. You are haverim. Called into a mission by God together. See, there's more to you than you think. There's more to you than you know. And God wants you to understand that and wants you to be a part of that. And so He goes on to say, you did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you may go and bear fruit that will last. And so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. See, we are called as haverim, as sacred companions, together into a mission. And my prayer for us is that as we kind of begin this journey, moving around our little circle that we talked about months ago, it feels like, from being spiritual infants to being children to being young adults and then eventually parents who are building into the lives of others, that we'll get this one right. That we will connect with God, that we'll know Him, not just know about Him, but secondly, that we will come together as friends, but more than just friendship. We would be together on a mission. And one, it makes your friendship like a whole lot more interesting. Because it's not just about us, it's about what God has called us to together. The last one, I think, is basically together. We take God's reign to the lost. We take God's love, His message to the lost. We reach out. And that happens together. It's not one person's job. It's not Moses' job. No, He's called other people to be a part of that. And as we kind of talk through these next couple of weeks about what it is that God has called us to, my prayer is that maybe God will kind of put His finger on you and say, you know what, I think you're a leader. I think I want you to lead some people. I think I want you to call a group of friends together. And not just friends, maybe they're friends now, but they're going to become sacred companions on your journey to do the mission of God. And so you may have friends, and maybe you're friends for 7 years, but there's another level of friendship that God maybe wants in your life where you're now on a journey together to reach out to those who don't know Him. Because that's the reign of God coming to the earth. And And that's what he's called us all to. Now, as Jesus was ready to leave this earth and to send out his disciples, his apostles, he gathered them together in a room, and he explained to them the great sacrifice that he was going to make for them. And he did it with elements, with bread, with wine. It would have been elements of the meal that they had. And so, though it was sort of familiar to them, it was a Passover meal that they would have done many times, he did add a few things to help them realize, whoa, this is taking on new meaning now. This isn't just the old thing that we always know. This is something very new. And for us, this might be kind of a new thing about saying we're not just going to be friends so that we can go camping together or out to lunch together or hang out together. We together are going to be a part of God's mission. And that's going to make all the difference. And so as we take communion, I do pray that you'll sense God saying, you know what, it's time. It's time to join together and be a part of my mission. And so I'll ask the ushers to sort of prepare to come forward, get the elements. Heavenly Father, I think it's pretty obvious from your word that you do have a plan in place and you have a way of bringing your reign to this earth, that we would have dominion with you. And my prayer, Lord, is that we would want to be a part of that. And if we've been doing kind of church or business as usual, you want us to take a step out of isolation into a community of people who are on mission. And so help us. Help us to be open to your leading, your guiding, the freshness of your Spirit, prompting us to be a part of this. And also help us to know that regardless of what we do, you are always going to love us. That by your death and your blood being shed, you have cleansed us from all of our sin, and you are our Father, and we are your children. And we are your servants. But now you've called us your friends, and honorary, to go on a mission with you. And you said that you would be with us always to do this. So we thank you for your great love for us. Prepare our hearts now to be reminded of the sacrifice that you made, the love you've shown, and the freedom we have because of it.